So the year we came here was the year that the mine just shut down. This was a town that was dying. It was, the only economy was the mine. And then one day, that tap turned off. And it was pretty dramatic.
Mining don't last forever, fellas. And I knew that. And so something had to change here in Telluride. And thank God it was the ski area that made the difference.
This town, if it wasn't a ski area or a resort, a new economy, it had no future. And it kind of worked at just the timing. We just worked that way, and it wasn't planned. But now I got to tell you, during those years, the first 15 years that I was my wife and I were in town, I was public enemy number one.
It was a little bit lonely for a while, but one by one, as we started building one piece of that master plan that we got approval for, people started thinking, well, maybe. I don't think it's going to happen, but maybe it will now. And then a few years later, it's like, well, I don't know. It's starting to look pretty good here. And then after a number of years, it was like, it was their idea.
There was always a plan for sort of a village, a small one, but when Ron came here, it all changed and became what Mountain Village is today. It was fairly immediate that we saw that things were changing and we were growing and our skier days were growing. And then in 1985, we started building the Mountain Village. And then it was like, work every day as hard as you could. And I mean, we built all the infrastructure for the Mountain Village, roads and sewer, power, everything. And things were changing rapidly. And quite frankly, the biggest change of all is when you could probably say, yeah, we're here for real, is when the airport was built.
We didn't know one thing about building an airport, and we had only X number of dollars that we thought we could spend on this. We get this bid comes in, and we're $10 million over our budget. And so I go out to Sacramento, where the FAA office was, and I sit down and say, guys, the thing that's causing all this cost is this huge ravine that went right across the middle of the runway from south to north. And by the time we fill it up, it just costs too much money. They finally called me back in and they said, well, look, you can build the runway like this. Do you remember that? Okay? And you just go down in that hole, not all the way down, but go down in it, and it'll be okay. And I said, guys, that doesn't seem right. What? Are you sure this will work? Can planes fly in and out of here? Oh yeah, don't worry about it. That's okay. So we built it that way, and it opened. And planes were coming in, going out, and but it operated for quite a few years like that.
It was a lot of fun riding in the planes and listening to the people when they had the commercial flights. Oh man!
And it was very obvious that if you're going to build a town where the Mountain Village is, and you got this old historic town, and there's 7.2 miles by road, that we better find a transportation system between those two communities, because there's going to be a lot of people going back and forth. We really were studying what was going on in Europe, because Europe was so far ahead of the American ski industry in terms of their resorts. They were 20 years ahead of us, or 25.
So Joyce Allred, Ron Allred, Terry Fernald, myself, and I just go over to Europe to just see what's there. And we meet with the French, because we know where we need to go. We need to go 26 minutes. A chairlift wouldn't work. And the French went, you know what? We got a chairlift that'll go 1,000 feet a minute. That is what you're riding right now, 13 minutes. We went, really? So we went up to this place called Vougenet, and they had their first prototype detachable chairlift. Instead of being rubber tire driven and rubber belts, it was driven by chains. It sounded like the goddamn thing was going to blow up. But We knew now, isn't that right, Ron? That all came together. We could be there in 13 minutes. We could build intervals. We could build capacity. We were the first that customed a gondola in the world because we knew we needed 3 sections. We knew all this sort of stuff. It took us about 3 or 4 years later. Joyce is over there. We're going through all these factories. And Joyce is the one woman in these factories with men in Europe that have been there for 40 years. And they'd see good-looking Joyce come in. They were doing cat calls and whistling, and they just loved Joyce going through those factories. And when we fly back, she goes, if I never see a chairlift factory, my life will be soon enough. She went through every one of them.
The only thing that really worked was really the gondola. It almost broke our company doing it, but it's there.
To fund that, the ski company, they knew that if we were going to get the ridership year-round, 12 months out of the year, it actually is about 10 and a half, if you could fund it without charging people to get on it every time, it would be much more successful. So also fortuitously, we were so early in the development of the Mountain Village that we were able to take the development of the Mountain Village, the real estate, and the finances that came with it. So we could finance it as though it was free. Had there not been the Mountain Village, had there not been the vision, because the gondola came in concert with the Mountain Village. And that to me was as difficult as the construction of the gondola, but the foresight and then the ability to fund that in conjunction with the development of the Mountain Village was again another one of those things that some would say is lucky. 2014, I think there were something like 2.1 million rides on the gondola. That, I don't care who it was, me included, that utilization so exceeds what we'd even envisioned. And the good thing about it is you can continue to add capacity to it. So you got the frequency. So it was absolutely the perfect deal.
I knew it was going to happen. I had believed in it. I had to believe in it. And not having good access was a negative back then. But today, I knew someday it would become an asset. As long as we don't grow too much, all the rest of the things are going to fall in place, I think.